right, ladies and gentlemen, how we all doing? Good evening. It's good to see you today, finally. There was no main channel video earlier, of course. Instead, we've opted for the usual weekly Q&A stream for your Tuesday night viewing pleasure. It's a big night for Celtic for a number of reasons. We'll talk about that as the stream goes on, but it's mostly transfer talk, and we're here to talk about things getting silly, because that's exactly what happens as it's 20 days to go until the closing of the transfer window. Squads for the playoff round of the Champions League qualifiers have to be registered by Thursday. Time's ticking, and names are being thrown out, but not many that look severe or close to happening or serious. Yeah, there's a lot to cover with just so much uncertainty in the air. 20 days to go, and Celtic are now getting to the stage where every rumour that comes out, you look at a wee bit and go, very much doubt that. And you've got to trust the Twitter experts. We're getting it right. But we'll get into that as the stream goes on. Also, Celtic tonight will find out who they play in that Champions League playoff round. It'll either be Slovan Bratislava or Kairat Almaty. The second leg takes place in Bratislava tonight. Kairat go there 1-0 up. Will it be a trip to Kazakhstan? I hope not. Rangers, of course, they're playing in their playoff game as well. In their third round game right now that will take them into their playoff game, and it looks as though they're going to go through to the next round against RB Salzburg of Austria. Yeah, a few things happening tonight that we'll cover over the course of this next half hour. Of course, I want all your questions and such as well. But stay with me, join me as we take care of this tonight. Like and subscribe, donate if you like, join as a channel member. We've got a lot of ground to cover with over 170 live viewers as it stands right now. Thank you to Boys in Green, who's been a member for 10 months, saying, "Hi Ryan, cheers for the channel shout out a few weeks ago. How are you doing, mate?" I'm doing well. How are you doing, Boys in Green? Thank you. I appreciate it, and you're welcome. Listen, 20 days to go, and everybody just wants to talk about transfers, rumours, who's coming in. We're all getting a little bit fed up, and we're all getting a little bit tired. I, for one, am getting a little bit fed up and tired at the lack of transfer news. But I think one of the more annoying things is that in recent days, we're just having to deal with some amount of nonsense, and that's continuing into tonight. We'll talk about some of the social media rumours that are already spiralling and the ones that have emerged over the past hour or so. But this is what happens, you know, when you operate throughout a transfer window with no certainty, and when everything's up in the air, and then you allow yourself to fall into the position of rushing to sign your players. Nonsense starts to come out. Journalists will write anything. And the thing is about journalists all over this country, they know that Celtic fans are desperate for news. They're desperate for a headline. And that doesn't just go for this country. This goes for, you know, all over Europe. They know that Celtic fans are going to be quick to click on the first thing they see. So it's so easy to write an article, and it's so easy to link players to Celtic in times like this. And that's exactly what seems to be happening over these past few days. Now, what I will say before I talk about any of these stories that have been getting thrown out there, you take everything with a pinch of salt, first and foremost. But I'm also not saying that there's 100% chance that none of these players could be Celtic players. We're going to talk about the Andy Irving situation, which I think most people will be aligned with in the same thinking. But listen, I don't think there's much in it. We'll come to that. I think the one I want to start off with, though, is to do with Calvin Stengs, because I just want to get this over and done with while it's fresh in the mind, while people are talking about it, and while people know it exists. This was something that came out this afternoon that a lot of pages are picking up on, a lot of the Twitter experts are picking up on. It was from a Dutch football outlet, Football Transfers Netherlands, which I think we've actually used in the past on this channel to talk about a couple of stories. Now, they put out a headline saying that Celtic is set to become Calvin Stengs' new club. That is not the case. Calvin Stengs is not coming to Celtic, and Calvin Stengs will not be a Celtic player. In fact, the actual article that's paired along with this headline itself basically confirms that, because if you do go and read the article, if you click on the article, which I will switch over to right now, if you switch it over to English and you read that article, so a journalist called Willem Legraaf, Celtic must free Calvin Stengs and Feyenoord from each other this summer. This is nothing but an opinion piece. This is just an opinion piece. That's all it is. There is nothing else in this to suggest that Calvin Stengs has spoke to Celtic, that Celtic have spoke to Feyenoord, that he's even on the radar of Celtic. This is purely an opinion piece. So I just wanted to get this out of the way before people start asking questions about it, before people start going, oh, do you see Calvin Stengs is getting linked with Celtic? Calvin Stengs is not getting linked with Celtic. This is a piece from a Dutch journalist who said that Celtic would make a good match for Calvin Stengs. And by the way, Willem, no harm to you, because I agree with you. I'd happily take Calvin Stengs as a winger option this summer, and it's certainly nice to see a name of some form. But genuinely, if you go and read the article, if it will translate over to English for me, which it doesn't seem like it wants to, it's essentially just saying that he would be a good fit for Celtic. That's all this article is. There is nothing concrete there, nothing serious. And I think everybody was getting their hopes up a few hours ago on Twitter when people started posting, oh, Calvin Stengs is getting linked with Celtic. You heard it here. Noise, no. It's a lot of shite. However, if Celtic want to look into it, they should feel free to do so, because I think it would actually be quite a good option, unironically. But this is a nothing story. This is nothing to do with Celtic. This is one man's opinion, and that man being Willem Liegraf. So thanks, Willem, for getting everybody's hopes up. When I seen the article pop up on Twitter, I just about shat myself. I thought we were seriously linked with a right winger, and that's not happening. So, yeah, you could scrap that one from the books and kiddling that you've not seen it, because it's pointless. So that takes me into the other one, which kind of done the rounds last night, and I guess we could cover this very, very quickly as well, and I'll get my opinions, because this is more of a Q&A, of course, this stream. I want to get your questions, your points, and that's what I'm going to turn their attentions to. But this was one of the big ones that took the social media by storm last night, that Celtic had bidded for Andy Irving. Now, I don't believe this for a second. That's just my opinion. If you want my educated guess, it's nonsense. It makes no sense. Celtic don't need Andy Irving. Andy Irving, in my opinion, isn't good enough for Celtic. And I just think it's nonsense. Where does he get in the team? Where does Celtic need wingers? They need forwards. They don't need another midfielder. They don't. And he's not this holding midfielder that everybody's crying out for. And even if he was, why would Celtic go and spend money on him and bring him in just to sit behind Callum McGregor anyway? It would make no sense. The squad is too big as it is. We don't need Andy Irving. So everybody was getting a bit carried away from this, because it came from this page here, Central, West Ham Central. It's a West Ham fan page. And may I reiterate the point here? Thought to be from Celtic. Thought. That's all. It's thought to be from Celtic. And this is the problem we're in now. We're at that stage of the window. And this is what my general takeaway from this is. And the reason I want to bring it up and talk about it right now. Because we've got 20 days to go. Because it's less than 3 weeks and fans are getting desperate. Any name, and pages are getting desperate, podcasts, whatever, blogs are getting desperate. Any name that is now linked with Celtic is all of a sudden seen as something that's actually in the works and it's definitely happening. This was a West Ham fan page coming out and said that there was a 2.2 million bid thought to be from Celtic already rejected. But I fully believe this part's true. The top part, they'll know better than anybody of what's happening. £3.5 million, Andy Irving, that's what West Ham want. They probably do. But that's not to say that Celtic are actually in for him. I think that's just ridiculous to even suggest. I could put a lot of my own credibility on the line here just to say that I don't believe any of this, that Celtic haven't even been in contact with West Ham. It's not the first time his name has been brought up with Celtic this window, which is interesting enough. But after the signing of Benji Nygren, and the fact that Hatate looks to be staying, Brendan Rodgers kind of reiterated that point at the weekend. The fact that we have all these other midfielders at the club, it wouldn't make any sense. But it has been picked up on by a number of places now. In fact, this was something from 3 hours ago from the Herald, who wrote an article saying that Rangers are now into quote unquote rival Celtic in a chase for Andy Irving. And that was from Blair Meikle, who, once again, I will just say very quickly, I'm not here to question the credibility of any journalist. Hey, they probably know a lot more than I do. I would trust Blair Meikle a lot more than I would trust West Ham Central with suggesting that Celtic have bid. But he goes on to say that it's been reported that Celtic had an earlier bid rejected for €1.75 million. That's the same report that popped up a couple of months ago. This isn't in reference to the report that popped up from West Ham Central yesterday. This is about the one that first popped up at the start of the window. So the fact that he said that Rangers have apparently joined the race to rival Celtic for Andy Irving, I think that's just an easy line to go with, to grab the attention, to grab the clicks, even though that 1.75 million bid was apparently quite a while ago. I would happily let Rangers have him. I don't think he's good enough for Celtic. There is talks that Cologne, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Stuttgart, Sturm Graz and Austria are also interested, and also Serie A sides as well. But I don't think Celtic have any actual say in this. I don't think they're looking at him. It's a rubbish story, and I think that that's got to be that. I think that this will go away, it'll blow over, especially when he ends up signing for someone, whether that be Rangers, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Sturm Graz, any of those sides he will join. He will not join Celtic, and I will put my life on the line to say it. I will die live on air if I need to prove a point. Andy Irving will not be a Celtic player, and I'm pretty confident of that. I can do my fair share of asking about. I can go and do my fair share of this and that. What I have asked about and seen is most people agreeing. It's just, it seems like nonsense. So yeah, we are at a very, very different point of the window as we were even this time last week. We're at a very difficult point of the window because people are getting so desperate. And just on a final note to pick up on this, before we get into the Q&A, the reason that it's such a horrible time and it gets so silly at times like this when Celtic are desperate is because you start seeing articles like this. And this is why you need to be careful with what you read, because these are the sorts of things that are getting posted on social media. And this is the sort of things that I see people flock to the comments section with. Oh, do you see Celtic are apparently working on 8 deals? Oh, do you see Celtic are going for Andy Irving and Calvin Stengs? No. And they're not working 8 deals either. The Daily Record have lured people in because they know Celtic fans are desperate. And that's why I always say, look, listen, I'm not here to report exclusives. I don't get exclusive. I've never claimed that I'm in the know. I've never claimed I get exclusives. But at least what I post on this channel is posting stuff that could be somewhat legitimate, or it's coming from somewhere that's not sheer nonsense. It's the same every year. You get linked with 200 players, you sign 3 or 4. Of course it is, but this is the kind of headlines that they're trying to get you in with, that Celtic are working on 8 deals. No, they're not. If you go and read this article, it is just a recap of everything Celtic have been trying to do this window, allegedly. You know, they bring up stuff like the big centre-half that I forgot his name, it's just slipped my head last week, they were getting linked with from Italy. It brings up stuff like Michel-Ange Balikwisha. It brings up stuff like Sondre Orjaseta. It's just names, 8 names that we've been linked with, but they're making it sound like, and fans are quick to believe, that we're trying to make 8 signings. We're not. You've got to be careful with what you read. Whatever I present on this channel will always be after what I've read, giving you the most honest interpretation that I possibly can. But for now, there is nothing out there. There is nothing. And that's the sad reality of the transfer window that we're having to deal with right now. It's all hearsay. It's all speculation. There's nothing concrete. And that makes me just as sad as it probably makes you. But don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here doing my side of things. That seems to be the general update for tonight so far. I'd like to give a big shout out to Cammy and thank you for the donation. He's saying, not at a computer right now, so I can't donate memberships. Fantastic Four is a dud. Don't waste your hard-earned money on it. Thank you for the film review. I thought it was okay. 3 out of 5 from me. It wasn't as good as what I think some people are making out. But thank you for the donation. And of course, you can gift memberships whenever you feel like it, Cammy. They're always appreciated. Any sort of donation is obviously appreciated as well. But yeah, that's it for tonight. The only other thing is Callum Osman is playing for the B team in that game tonight in the Lowland League. Oh, sorry, it's a cup game. I can't remember now. Callum Osman is playing in that game, but that's essentially the only news I have to bring you tonight, because there's just nothing there. It's been a quiet day, hence the reason there was no main channel video this afternoon, and hence the reason that I'm not coming here with fantastic. I wish that the Calvin Stengs thing was real, but it's obviously not. So we touched on that at the start of the stream. Right, this is a Q&A. This is meant to be you guys getting your say and asking your questions. So I want you to pile them in, and we're going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes talking about any of these stories. I'll start with this one here. Daniel Rogan asking about Trusty links. I don't think there's much there at this moment in time. I know that there's been murmurs of people looking at clubs looking at Austin Trusty. At this stage, I don't think that's anything that's too serious or much to read into. Yeah, it's just early stages of even if anything exists there. So I don't think there's much there in it right now, and until there is something to touch on it, I don't think that there's much point in covering much about it. Right, let me see. What's this one tonight then, Rico? So what you try to get me with? Shaq Iward. Shaky Bird. Is that maybe Jackie Bird? Is that what that's meant to be? Looks like Jackie Bird. Jackie Bird might happen. Shaky Bird. I don't know. What is that meant to be? They're getting more difficult for me to read. I think that my literacy skills are fucking depleting, to be quite honest. Either that or it's the heat getting to me. But you can keep trying, Rico. You can keep trying. You know, I always appreciate it. Appreciate you, brother. Sack board, exactly that. Thank you, Luke. Looking forward to the NFL returning. Have you done an NFL fantasy draft before? Go Birds? No, I have not. And I probably won't this year either because I'd struggle enough to keep up with FPL and our football, the real football, so doing an NFL one would probably be quite difficult. But who knows? I might dabble. Thank you for the donation, though. Thoughts on the Maida news. Okay, so obviously this week there's been a lot of conversation surrounding Dyson Maida and potentially leaving the club. I think we're all waiting with despair and kind of holding our breaths to see what happens with Brentford and specifically Johan Visa, who's meant to be leaving the club. And then after that, if they strike for Dyson Maida, if they go for Dyson Maida, I think that it's one that you may as well just stay calm about just now. It could be a waste of your own energy. It could be a waste of time even worrying about it. With 20 days to go in the window, Celtic don't have the... They can't allow Maida to leave. And even if that's to Maida's displeasure, I just don't think Maida should be allowed to leave at this stage of the window. We haven't prepared for his departure. I said this on the first podcast of the season, and I think I'll kind of stick by it right now. I can see him leaving in January. When we were doing our quick-fire questions and we were asking who our player of the year picks were, you know, everybody was quick to say Maida. I was the only one on the panel that didn't say Maida because I think he could leave in January, similar to how Kyogo did this past year. But right now, I just don't think there's much point of worrying about it. Celtic haven't even got a backup left winger at this moment in time, so they can't justify letting them go. And unless the bid is in excess of £30 million, I don't think it's anything that the club should be entertaining, to be quite honest. And so many people are quick to jump. The body language police are back out. And because Maida hasn't scored back-to-back hat-tricks in the first couple of games of the season, apparently he's disinterested now and he wants to go. I can't be arsed with all of that. I think that people are sometimes, quite frankly, fucking idiots. And the body language police have always been fucking idiots to me. It was the same back in the COVID years. It was the same before that. I think if Maida wants to be here, he'll stay. And he'll pick up his form. If he doesn't want to be here, I think he'll be professional about it, and I think he'll perform until he gets such a time where he's allowed to leave. Also, the only reason I meant to address this, the only reason Erikson was on the cover is because he's another one whose name was on the fucking forums and all the rest of it this past week. And as I said, things are just getting very, very silly, and names are getting linked. I think out of all of them, he's probably the most realistic and believable out of all the silly names that are getting thrown about. But I just put him on for that reason. That's all. I needed a second person to put in the thumbnail, and his name was doing the rounds earlier in the week. So that was about that. And I think that if Maida was to put back through the middle, I think we'd see him back to his best. I think he was getting used to playing there. And also, another thing that was brought up as well, that I think a lot of people just choose to ignore for the sake of getting some attention on Twitter and claiming that he's away and fucking acting like Inspector Gadget, is because it's very easy to say that Dyson Maida looks shite and all the rest of it. The fact of the matter is, he's playing with a completely different player behind him now. He's not playing with Greg Taylor. He's playing with Kieran Tierney, who does a lot more attacking work than what Greg Taylor done, and a lot more efficient attacking work than what Greg Taylor done. That's going to be a big adjustment for Dyson Maida to get used to as well. So I'm not getting dragged into the whole analysing his fucking body language and facial expressions and how many times he's chasing the ball back down. We'll see in the next couple of weeks what happens with Brentford, and if anything else pops up with Maida. I've said it, I wouldn't rule out him moving at some point in this season, more in particular January. But right now, I don't think it's worth wasting your breath about it, to be quite honest. It's like exactly that. You know, Erikson and Vardy are the kind of players that I'm surprised we haven't heard more about this summer, because it would suit the board. Nice and cheap, you know. So that's still game. 3 pence. You know, they can get away with that for the likes of Vardy and Erikson. And I'm stunned that we haven't had a kind of more closer conversation about them. He's always been the same, though. He's not always been buzzing to play football, or am I missing something? I don't know. I think people just read into things too much. I agree with this, by the way. I think, I said this yesterday, and I don't care what anybody says. Christian Eriksen would walk into the Celtic team as the best player in the squad. Most like, he's unbelievable. He's one of the most technically proficient midfielders I've ever seen. He's unbelievable. And I know he's a wee bit older now, but even at Manchester United, he was putting a fucking shift in post-heart attack. He would probably walk into the Celtic team as their best player, technical ability-wise. So it would be class. But just I don't think that Celtic are seriously in there. Once again, there doesn't seem to be a need for that sort of player right now. But I'm not going to get bogged down talking about fucking Eriksen when there's nothing there. You know, I'll just put him in the thumbnail because his name was doing the rounds on the forums and such earlier this week. Lewis Montano, yeah, there's been talk about Lewis Montano again, and I think there's still a whole question mark over his apparent move to France that seems to have broke down, maybe. I'm not a Romanian football expert, and I'm not going to claim that I'm in the know, but yeah, I think that there's an opportunity there for... The interesting thing was that Celtic apparently had a bid rejected, which is very close to the bid that they had accepted, I think, in France. I think it was a couple of million off or something. So I don't know. I'm expecting that to be a name that comes up again over the next couple of weeks, because I'm not going to lie, unless his move to France revives itself and he goes back. But we'll wait and see. Erikson isn't better than Bernard, but that is nonsense. Take a look at yourself. Of course he is, for goodness sake. Of course he is. I love Paulo Bernardo, but to pretend that he's even close to the level of Christian Eriksen would just be foolish. It'd be absolute nonsense. I mean, this seems to be... I think that realistically we're looking at next week being the biggest week news-wise. If we can win the home leg convincingly on Wednesday, which I think Bratislava are winning 1-0 right now, by the way. I'm going to put a prediction out there that Bratislava win that game. If Bratislava are the team that wins, and even though we won't do this, if we were to hypothetically pump them again, which I don't think so, I think that's when we're going to start seeing Celtic move with a bit more conviction. But it's tiresome, man, and we shouldn't be waiting. I just can't believe that this is the stage we're at. But, well, I can. Of course I can. But it's a pain in the arse. It's fucking tedious as fuck. Pardon my French. I do apologise. But I think that next week we will, if we were to beat Bratislava by 3 goals on Wednesday, I think that Thursday, Friday afternoon, we could potentially hear stories about, here's Balikwisha coming back up again. Oh, here's Lewis Montano. I think we'll start seeing wheels go and turn, and maybe we'll actually get closer to signing a player. Oh, I'll let you away with it then. Sorry. Thank you, Connor, for the donation. I appreciate it, mate. £2. It's always appreciated. All right, Ryan. David Strelic for 12 million. Yes or no? I think that 12 million is a lot of money. But at this stage, I've said this a million times before. I'll repeat it now. If the player's good enough, I'd pay anything. It's not my money. Technically, it is. I pay 650 quid for a season book, so technically it is my money. But it's not my money. You know, it's not me paying for this player. I just want a striker. I think 12 million would be a bit over the top, but I like the look of Strelic. I think he could be decent. And his name rhymes with Celic. What's not to like? So I think 12 million's a bit of a stretch. But we'll see where it goes. A lot of people, it seems to be a kind of mixed thing in the chat about Strelic. Some people saying they wouldn't pay him, some people wouldn't take him. I seen comments earlier saying people would take him. I think realistically we can't be picky about strikers right now because there isn't an awful lot of names out there who are still linked with the club. I think that the only two that I can think of off the top of my head is the likes of Strelic and Montano. Of course, Visgarden is finally away elsewhere. All these other strikers that we spoke about at points in the window seem to have gone quiet. I remember, what was his name? Giovanni Ambrosino? Don't know what's happening there. Yeah, it's a strange one. It's a strange one. We spoke about the Trusty stuff earlier. I don't think there's much there right now to suggest that that's actually happening, but I wouldn't blame him if he was wanting to move because he's stuck behind Liam Scales, and I don't think he should be. Even though I don't think that Trusty is the answer either, but I certainly think he's better, and I would take him into the starting 11 if possible. The Strelic the Thunder. I like that, by the way, the Strelic the Thunder. If he joins, that'll be the podcast title when he signs, Matthew. Thanks very much. Hello, Nathan Green. How far away are you from stopping being a hopeless idiot defender? Got to put my neck on the line and say I've never thought he was good enough to start with. It's crazy how I've came full circle with Ida. I sat here passionately making a point in January of 2024 that I didn't think he was good enough, and it was a shambolic signing from Celtic, to then now being probably the last one standing and trying to defend him. But I think if you've watched any of my match reactions in the last 2 weeks, my patience is wearing thin. And I was filming with Sam of Footy Adventures today, and we had a conversation off camera about Adama Traore, and I still have no reservations about him being an option at Celtic, but I think right now he's done nothing to suggest he can be more than an option. His opportunity of trying to claim the first team striker spot is I mean, it's on its last legs. It's these next couple of games for him, and even at that, I don't think it's enough to convince supporters. He really had to do it against. And I don't mean to be the kind of reactionary supporter, because I do love the big man, and I always will, even if it doesn't work out and he moves on or whatever. I'll always like him, and I'll always want it to work for him. But I think he really had to do something. He really had to deliver from the last stretch of pre-season into these first 2 games of the season, and he's not done that. So even if he was to score 3 against Falkirk, and even if he was to score 2 against Livingston, and even if he was to somehow get a goal against Rangers as well, I don't think that those 3 games are enough to convince the majority of supporters that he is the guy. And that's just my honest assessment of it. Would it be enough to convince me? I maybe wouldn't use the word convince. I'd maybe say it would be enough to tide me by for a wee bit. But, you know, you're relying on somebody who clearly isn't consistent at the minute and hasn't been consistent for a good while. So how far can you trust that? You know, you can't trust it that far. So it's a strange one. I think he needs a balance of confidence and time, but time's running out. And he needs to get the confidence sooner rather than later. Or, you know, big questions are going to be asked about him. Ryan, I don't get why KT came off in the last 2 games and Trusty comes on. Shouldn't Enamura be that backup left back? The only reason that KT has came off, of course, is because of fitness issues. But in terms of bringing players on, I said this the other day on the channel. Enamura, I get it. And I said this in my match build-up stream. I don't mean to be harsh to Enamura, who I do want to see given chances at some point. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve them, or I don't want to see him given chances at all. But there's only a certain amount of spots on that bench. And Enamura, sadly, is just so far down the pecking order of getting that spot. Liam Scales and Austin Trusty, hey, they might be controversial to some. They might still be players that haven't convinced sections of the support. But they've certainly done enough to warrant their place in the matchday squad. Enamura hasn't. Enamura's a guy who only graduated from university less than a year ago and has played 20-odd senior games in his career. So if you're looking at it from a realistic point of view, what suggests that he should be in a matchday squad over guys that are, you know, Champions League man of the match winners and league title winners and consistent players in the matchday squad, and Liam Scales and guys like Trusty who've obviously chipped in and had a bit of a senior career? It's just unlucky for Enamura at this moment in time. There isn't a spot for him, and he wasn't a Brendan Rodgers signing either, so it comes as no surprise to me. I would like to see him given chances. Maybe Friday against Falkirk he'll get that chance, Aiden, but I think that we can understand it if you boil it down to the, you know, just the facts of it all, you know. I don't even know, Kevin. I don't know what the reason is. There's so many possible things. Champions League football playing a factor in it. There seems to be some murmurs going around that the board just don't trust the scouting team. If that's the case, right? I heard those rumours this week that the scouting team aren't being trusted for whatever reason. I don't know if that's last year's signings not, or the last couple of years' signings not fitting the bill or being up to the standard they expected and spending so much money. If that's the case, then go and improve your recruitment department. Do something about it. Don't sit still. But I don't know. I can only hypothesize. I think we all can only hypothesize. The fact of the matter is, nobody knows the answer to that question, apart from the people that work at Celtic Football Club. It's all just hypothesis and hearsay and a guessing game at the end of the day. And I wish that I had more to give you than that, but I would be lying to you. Just like everybody who claims knows what's happening is probably lying to you as well. But aye, that's that. Let's see, a few more questions before we run off for the evening. Thank you. We have nearly 500 live viewers right now, so that's much appreciated, guys. Cheers. If you haven't, please go down and hit that like button, because it helps get the content onto recommended, and that would just be very much appreciated, lads. Thank you. Yeah, exactly, Sam. Like any job, if somebody's not doing their job to the standard you expect, or to the standards you set out for them in the application process, sack them. You know, if I was in Tesco and I was fucking failing to cut loaves of bread and I was shite at it, they'd fucking sack me. So, you know, it should be treated like any other job, to be quite honest. Thoughts the Friday night kickoff returning? I'm looking forward to it, to be quite honest. I think it should be quite fun, something different. I'll feel quite empty come Saturday afternoon when Celtic have played and there's nothing to do. But I like the idea of it. A few pints beforehand, a few pints after. I think it could be some fun, and in games like that, I don't mind it at all. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I am praying that tomorrow I'm making a video where I can be talking about some certainty in the transfer market and where Celtic are heading in this transfer market. I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that we're going to be standing still for the rest of this week. And if I was to put my money on it, I think that Celtic won't get properly moving until next week after the Champions League first leg qualifier. I'm getting fed up, lads. I'm getting fed up. They've killed me. You remember the optimist that was here a few weeks ago? I was urging everybody to be calm and remain patient. He's dead. They've killed him. They've taken him away, out back. Put him down. Right, take care of yourself, everybody. God bless, and I'll see you all next time. Tara.